Oh man, I wanted to check out one of these ever since I first saw one years ago. And finally, I have the chance to review and demonstrate for you guys, in my humble opinion, one of the coolest signature guitars that I've ever seen. Here it is, the Gibson Jason Hook M4-Sherman Signature Explorer. Look at this gorgeous bastard. And what's even cooler is that I'm not gonna only show you the Gibson, I got the Epiphone version as well. For now we're gonna start with the big boy here, and I'm gonna review the Epiphone in a separate video, do a little comparison between the two. For now, let's crack on with the M4-Sherman. Let's have the man himself introduce this cool Explorer.
This is Jason Hook. I just wanted to talk about my signature Gibson Explorer here for a second. This is absolutely my favorite guitar. I have a few of these, but this one is my new favorite actually. What I did here, well, we'll start with the guitar itself. It's based off just a classic Explorer. Pretty much the neck contour and the shape of it is all standard classic Gibson Explorer. But I ramped up a few features for my own taste.
And boy did he ramp up those features. This is one of the most unique signature guitars that I've ever seen. It is made for Jason Hook from Five Finger Death Punch. Only 400 of these were ever made, and it was released in 2012 together with the Thunder Horse and other famous Explorers. Unlike the Thunder Horse and the Lizzie Hale Explorer, for example, this one stands out big time thanks to this plastic PVC electrical cable conduit. When you see it combined with the cool military finish, you immediately know that this is Jason Hook's signature Explorer. I mean, yeah, the Thunder Horse is cool, being a silver burst and all, but this has so much character and it's all that the signature guitar should be. It should have the personality of its owner. And boy oh boy does the M4-Sherman Explorer have it. It has some unique colorways in the body that I'm gonna demonstrate for you later on in the video, while still retaining the classic Explorer shape, unlike for example the snake bite that Hetfield from Metallica did. What's even crazier is that this thing came out in 2012, which was not exactly the best year for Gibson. The FBI had just raided their warehouse, so they have to think of substitute woods for the fingerboard, so they used the Granadillo for this one. But still, Gibson managed to give us some of the coolest Explorers ever made 10 years ago in 2012. And I absolutely agree that guys like Jason Hook, like Brendan Small from Dead Clock, deserve cool guitars like this. Jason is an amazing player. He has this fast percussive style of playing. He's an amazing solo guitar player as well as rhythm. So you should definitely check out his YouTube channel. He has some cool lessons, some cool stories, and explanation about most of his guitars. Here's the thing about the M4-Sherman though. Unlike the Thunder Horse, which is basically a silver burst Explorer with a truss rod cover saying Thunder Horse on it, this has Jason Hook and Five Finger Death Punch written all over it. The case, the guitar, the case candy, everything. So you have to be a huge fan of either Five Finger Death Punch or Jason himself, or you have to dig the whole personality of the guitar, the military theme. With this in mind, Gibson figured out that the demand for the M4-Sherman is not gonna be through the roof, so they only made 400. And you can still find some of them available in mint condition. I think originally they retailed for something around $1,500, now they are double that. I think the M4-Shermans are a perfect collector's item and they're gonna get more and more desirable. And if you think they are crazy, just check this out.
Obviously the custom stuff is always the most interesting. Oh! This is a heavy guitar. This is the only one of its kind. Gibson made this for me specifically to take out on tour with Five Finger Death Punch. This is my double neck Explorer, Gibson Explorer, M4-Sherman heavyweight tank. How do you like that? Anyway, what's cool about this, not only is it the only one of its kind, I don't think Gibson's never made a double neck Explorer before, but this one actually, this one you can pull apart for ease of travel. Like let's say we had to fly somewhere and I wanted to take this with me, it actually has two separate hard shell cases. You just sort of, like a road case, you just unbuckle these and it pulls apart. There's two steel rods that come through the middle and that's it. So it's really cool and heavy and it sounds real good. And I have it set up with B to B standard on the bottom, which is baritone tuning, which is basically everything we do in Five Finger Death Punch. And then on the top neck, it's D standard, so I can play some of the solos on the record I played in a higher pitched guitar. So that allows me to play the solos up here in a comfortable zone, and it's a little slinkier. And then it's a little beefier down here for the rhythms, and that's basically it.
I'm just extremely lucky to have the chance to check out two of these side by side, and in such a good condition. And you know the coolest part? These two belong to friends of mine who are together in a band. They bought them together and managed to find them in absolutely mint condition. The Epiphone was brand new, basically. The only problems that I managed to find on the Epiphone, the reflector part of the knob fell off, but this is not a huge deal, it can be replaced. And the Gibson started to yellow a little bit because this is a nitro finish, but it is a 10-year-old guitar after all. So thank you guys, George and Kirill, for giving me the opportunity to check these out, and I'm gonna do the Epiphone in a separate video. For now, I'm gonna start with the Gibson, as I already told you. Man, I'm taking my sweet time with this one, but I'm enjoying it. I have two of these, the Gibson and Epiphone, side by side, so Christmas came early for me. Let's crack on with the specs. As Jason said, we have the standard Explorer type, the 58 type of body, with a couple of colorways that he added. This particular body is made out of mahogany, set neck construction with a mahogany neck as well. The fingerboard is made out of a hardwood called Granadillo. 22 super jumbo frets on this one. A Gibson Explorer headstock with mini Grover locking tuners. Then there's the pickups. We have Seymour Duncan 59 in the neck, JB in the bridge. A Nashville pneumatic bridge and the tailpiece. The PVC conduit for the three-way switch and the traditional Gibson Explorer controls. Removing the neck pickup reveals a traditional neck tenon for an Explorer. Some sort of dust or residue from a buffing compound. Let me check this one out. Yep, you can easily clean it off. Some glue residue, some markings in yellow, and the original military green finish color without the nitro on top of it. Here's another look of it from another angle. You can see the routing for the pickups, and the cool star pattern in the bridge continues under the pickup as well, which is pretty cool. Here's the Seymour Duncan 59, designated SH1 in the neck position. This one was made in 2012. August of 2012 to be exact, and it's an open coil. Seymour Duncan JB in the bridge position, designated SH4. This was made in 2012 as well. Now let's measure these pickups. I haven't seen the readings yet, but if I'm guessing right, the 59 should be around 7k ohms and the JB should be around 16. And here's some personal info about this guitar. Jason selected the JB for the bridge and didn't much care about what's in the neck position. Gibson just chose a pickup that complements the JB for the neck position and went with the 59. The 59 is softer at 7k ohms and good for soloing. Jason doesn't much care about the neck pickup though, as you probably seen on some live performances, he removes it from his guitars. He mainly uses the JB in the bridge position and doesn't care too much about the neck. He plays on the bridge. And now let's check them out. I've selected the JB, it's at 15.5, a little bit softer than the official specs at 16. Now switching over to the 59. 6.91, again a little bit softer, it's supposed to be 7.5. And the middle position, 473. And here it is, the reason that most of you are here for. The PVC conduit. Obviously you're not supposed to hold it like this. I'm gonna let Jason explain this one for you guys.
A lot of people ask me about the conduit here. It really doesn't do anything except for cover up the wires that are there. When I used to always pull the pick guard off these guitars, and what that does in essence is leaves a big open ugly channel here with all the wiring going from the pickups to the switch and back to the control knobs. So I was in the garage and I just was looking around and this worked perfectly. I just cut one slit in it and jammed it in there.
And sure enough, here is the routing for the pickups and the three-way switch. The pickup cables are actually under the conduit, only the three-way switch cables are in it. So you heard the man, he pretty much removed the pick guard and stuck this conduit in the guitar. And he used for the three-way switch, yep, you guessed right, this is an output jack plate. The three-way switch mounts perfectly to it. Here it is from another angle, just your typical PVC conduit. You can actually separate and open it up, but I'm not gonna do that because with time these get brittle and I don't wanna leave any marks on it or deform it. Here's the routing for the pickups, usual stuff for an Explorer. I'm gonna try and open it up just a little bit near the three-way switch to show you the cables. But here it is, here is what everybody is asking for. Have a look at this gorgeous bastard flopping around. Hey, it also resembles a gas mask cable, with the military theme, you know. Here's the three-way switch, L-shaped of course, a perfect fit for this conduit and with the shallow cavity of the Explorer. Otherwise a normal one wouldn't fit in here. Pretty ingenious solution with the rectangular jack plate. It's held in place by 3 screws. Obviously you don't have an easy access to the 4th one, so only 3 will do. And here's the thing, only Gibson has these. The Epiphone has the routing on the back of the guitar, not on the front like the Gibson. I'm gonna get into further detail when I do the Epiphone video, but for now I just wanted to talk about this. Why didn't Epiphone do the conduit on their guitar as well? Or at least just make it a front routed version so somebody can put their own conduit on it? Makes sense, right? Fans would have wanted the Epiphone to look like the Gibson and do it themselves. Well, one of the reasons I think is that it's hard to put a pick guard on a paint pattern like this. So basically they had no choice, they had to either make it with the tubing in front or do it like they did here with the back routing. Were they afraid that if they make the Epiphone look exactly like the Gibson, nobody's gonna buy the more expensive Gibson? You see, that sounds logical, but the Gibson was made in 2012 and the Epiphone in 2018, long after the Gibson sold out. So why didn't they do the Epiphone with the conduit? Well, here's the thing, a lot of people don't actually like having the conduit on the guitar. Epiphone decided to play it safe with this version, which is kind of disappointing to me. I absolutely understand why they did it, but I prefer the lunacy of the Gibson version. This is what gives the character of the guitar. It's what makes it special in the first place.
Now let me show you guys how you keep your pipe nice and clean. You do gentle strokes like this, really gentle along the entire length of the pipe. There we go.
Bridge and tailpiece. You're seeing some sticky tape here because I'm gonna attempt to save the setup. This guitar was properly set by my friend at Gramchev Guitars. He did an amazing job with this one, so I'm gonna do my best to save the setup. We got some typical stuff, PW marked, 2 pneumatic, Nashville. I think this is full weight. It's not lightweight aluminum. I'm gonna weigh them in a second together with the tailpiece. These are the poles for it. Let's see now, these usually weigh between 50 and 56 grams. 54, yeah, that's a full weight bridge. Here's what the tailpiece looks like, full weight as well, advanced plating long on the back. I'm not gonna weigh it because I wanna save up those brand new Elixir strings. A cool fact, the military theme on this guitar is not purely for show. 5-finger dead punch actually support the militaries of the US big time. They employ veterans in the crew of their shows. They also do USO shows, they entertain the troops. Their huge respect for the US military can also be heard in the lyrics of their songs such as Bad Company, The Wrong Side of Heaven. I think that's pretty honorable of them. That's why the military theme, that's why the M4-Sherman, for example, that you see on the truss rod cover here. It's pretty cool that the whole theme is not just for show. The star, the stripes, it's all to support the US troops. And show 5-finger dead punch and Jason Hook's respect for the US veterans and the people that are still serving in the army. Let's see what else we have here. We have the control knobs, black top hats with silver inserts, volume, tone. And a couple of unique features like this 45-degree cutaway here, which makes it a lot more comfortable for you to rest your forearm and play on the Explorer, unlike the 90-degree that usually Explorers have. Let's hear Jason about it.
I've had Gibson carve me out a 45-degree angle here from my forearm. I find it's just a little bit more comfortable than coming across a 90-degree for my forearm.
And the other unique feature is the cutaway on the lower horn here for better high fret access.
One thing I used to do to my old Explorers before I had this one made for me is I would scoop out a bunch of the bodywood here so that it allowed me to get a little higher up on the neck for solos. And I used to always bang into the body there and I'd have to try to get my fingers up over the wood. So I just used to take a drum sander and just get that out of there. So they put that in there, which is kind of cool.
Here's another cool thing about the finish, the stars and the stripes. The stripes continue along the side of the guitar, especially here in the back, here on the lower horn, and here on the 45-degree cutaway, which is pretty impressive. Here's one of the few things I'm not entirely happy with. Why didn't they make this stripe go all the way down here to the sides? Anyway, it's cool that Gibson took the extra steps to paint them along the sides of the guitars, not only on the top like the Epiphone version, unfortunately. Like all Gibsons, this one has a nitro finish, a nitrocellulose lacquer to be exact, and Jason is pretty happy with it. He calls it a natural finish. He says that if the guitar is made out of natural wood, the finish should be natural as well. Naturally. We have a set neck construction with a mahogany neck. For the fingerboard, Jason and Gibson went with this hardwood called Granadio, as he explains in a lot of his videos. It's pretty good looking in person, feels great as well, and if you don't know that it's Granadio, you will say that this is actually rosewood. Most of you probably know 2012 was not exactly the best year for Gibson considering rosewood, ebony and other woods, after FBI confiscated a lot of their wood supply, but I think the Granadio is a good substitute for the rosewood. Jason said that Gibson sent him a lot of prototypes with different fingerboard materials and he went with Granadio. Moving on to these pearloid dot inlays and the absolutely massive super jumbo frets. These are crazy wide and flat, but unfortunately on this particular guitar they had been slightly modified by Grumchev guitars. And the reason Grumchev had to crown these frets and make them a little bit sharper is because flat frets mess with intonation a lot. After all, flatter frets have bigger contact with the string. Let's hear Jason.
The frets on this Explorer are not the standard Gibson frets. These are super jumbo frets, so they're wide and flat. I do a lot of kind of like wiggly moves like that, and I find that the flatter the fret, the more it's easier to get around without tripping up on them. So that's actually I stole Zach Wild's fret wire from the factory. I was walking around asking them about fret wire, and they're like, the only other batch of wire we have in the plant right now we put aside for Zach's run of his Les Paul. So I literally picked it up and I said, let's take it. So anyway, sorry Zach, but this is the same wire.
Pretty ballsy to steal from Zach Wild, I give you that. The man is huge. That's a cool fact. The fret wire that you see here was meant to go on the Gibson Bullseye. It is a signature Les Paul made for Zach. Pretty cool. We have 22 of those super jumbo frets, white side dot inlays, 12-inch radius, 24.75-inch scale length. I am not 100% sure what the nut is made out of, some sort of composite material, probably Graphtec. I'm not sure if Gibson used them back then in 2012, but that's what it looks like. It's definitely not bone. The Explorer headstock with the black veneer, nitrocellulose lacquer finish on it as well, and this gorgeous Gibson mother of pearl logo. It looks fantastic in person, really pops from the headstock. And here's the truss rod cover, the traditional Gibson bell, 2 screws, 2-ply, M4-Sherman written on it. The model name came from the famous M4-Sherman tank that was used throughout the Second World War by the US military. Once again, showing 5-finger dead punch's love for the US Army. We see the M4-Sherman logo on this beautiful green case as well. This is what the truss rod cavity looks like. You can see the mahogany neck in it and the one-way adjustable truss rod. Let's measure this bad boy. The nut is a little bit wider than usual at almost 44mm or 1.72 inch. Things get back to normal at the 12th fret at 53mm or 2.08 inches. The thickness of the neck at the 1st fret is 21mm or 0.82 inch. It manages to stay thin throughout, all the way to the 12th fret at 21.7 or 0.85. The body thickness is almost 41mm or 1.60 inch. The fingerboard radius is typical for a Gibson guitar at 305mm or 12 inches. The neck profile. Okay, this is supposed to be a 60s slimmer neck profile. It's a combination between U and C. As I already showed you, it manages to stay slim around the entire length of it, so it's pretty comfortable to play and shred on it. After all, Jason does a lot of soloing. Here we are at the back, and it's the least exciting part of the guitar. As you can see, the stripes do not continue back here. On the plus side, this is a nitrocellulose lacquered finish, so it's gonna get yellow in time, as you can see here near the 1st fret. Some people like the way nitro ages, others don't, but generally it looks good, so it's gonna go well together with the green finish. Anyway, in here we have the electronics compartment, nothing too unusual. You got 2 volume pots and 1 tone. Here's the plastic cover for the electronics. It still has the protective film from it. This guitar is so mint. Here's what the output jack looks like, chrome cover on it, and the original position of the strap button here and here near the neck joint. These are replacement Lox brand. The original strap buttons are here. Here's something you should know. The back screw is longer, sits here. The front one is shorter. Here's another look at that high fret axis cutaway that Jason did. And to compare it to the Epiphone Extruder, for example, which has the worst high fret axis out of all of the Prophecies, see, it's much better in the Jason Hook signature. Makes playing on the high frets that much easier. Speaking of the neck, you see that here near the 1st fret the nitro finish has started to yellow. This is where my friend plays the most, where his hand gets most contact on the neck. Even with those yellow spots in the nitro finish, I think this is one of the best examples for a Jason Hook signature. It's in nearly mint condition, it's excellent. And moving on to the headstock and the Jason Hook signature decal. Not exactly subtle, but I like it. It has Jason on it holding his signature Explorer. And his website, Hooks Guitars. This whole thing is a decal under the nitro finish. I like this, it's pretty cool. Reminds me of Zakk Wylde's signature decal on his Les Paul. Moving on to the serial number, which is barely visible, but we have 1, 2, 9. It's a bit hard to read, but we have the help of the certificate of authenticity, and here it is, 12992. Here's the way you read this. You have 12992. 1 and 2 means the year 2012. 299 is the day of the year. Checking with the calendar, it should be the 25th of October of 2012. Jason is super happy with those Grover mini locking tuners on the headstock. Here's the Grover mini locking tuner outside of the guitar, PW, same as the bridge writing on the back of it. The entire tuner with the nut, washer and screw weighs about 39 grams. The whole guitar is pretty lightweight at 3632 grams or exactly 8 pounds. Now let's compare it to the Epiphone, which weighs 3313 grams or 7.30 pounds. A little bit lighter, but I think it's because it's missing the tubing and all. I gotta compliment my friend, the owner of this Explorer. I don't see any dinks, bangs on the usual spots for an Explorer. These are really hard to keep in such a condition. You always bang them in the upper or the lower horn or the back here, up here, mostly on the headstock. This one is perfect. Good job, man. Probably lived most of its life in this gorgeous Gibson USA, made in Canada, original case. The white stitching, even green here on the side. This case is gorgeous. Here's the other side as well. It has these 3 chrome latches, a sturdy leather handle, and the M4-Sherman logo with the tank and Jason's name. This case is absolutely amazing. Everybody who walks into the shop notices it, and I think this is one of the coolest cases that Gibson ever made. Same as the Gibson Thunder Horse, it has this white plush lining inside. A huge compartment for accessories and a perfect fit for an Explorer. Now let's take out this beast and show you what's in the case. Here it is without the guitar in, and this huge compartment for accessories is open with this leather handle. Luckily, all of the case candy and the entire documentation is still in here. I'm gonna show them to you. First off, some original silica gel and case made in Canada label. Starting with one of the coolest thing in here, the certificate of authenticity, the box that it comes with, and the instructions for building it. Yes, you actually build your own certificate of authenticity. You assemble these two pieces of glass and the leather base that holds them. Here it is, the paper certificate is between these two pieces of glass, held together by two magnets and the leather base. Here's the Chinese manufacturer that produces these. I don't think that's genuine leather, but it feels nice, the Gibson logo pressed into it, white stitching. On the back of it there's some information about the model, the serial number and the signature of the general manager of Gibson at the time. What's interesting is the phrasing. They say 400 selected fans at this time, so they were probably planning for a reissue based on sales numbers. That never happened. Instead they played it safe with the Epiphone version that came out later. Here's the certificate of authenticity disassembled, the two pieces of glass, the magnets on them. This is the first time I'm seeing a Gibson model that comes with a certificate like this. Maybe there are others, but I haven't seen any. Next up, some more case candy and this cool tin of M4-Sherman Jason Hook signature green picks. Here's the backside, and I actually know a lot of collectors that will buy this guitar just for the picks alone. I'm not entirely sure if these were sold separately back in 2012, but usually guitar manufacturers make them specially for the guitars to make them more appealing. What do we got on here? Jason Hook M4-Sherman Explorer Limited Edition Tortex. We have a black one as well. Pretty nice. Then there's the owner's manual, pretty typical stuff. Most Gibsons come with this one. It's supposed to have the Les Paul and the V pictures. Yep, right here. Now that's pretty cool. Dunlop strings specially made for 5-finger dead punch. They are playing all the way down to B standards, so they need the thick gauge strings 13 to 70. It's pretty cool that this box of strings is unopened. It's part of the case candy. I'm not gonna open it, obviously. It's gonna stay together with the guitar. It's gonna stay with all of the other case candy, and I still can't believe I managed to find a guitar that was made in 2012 with all of the case candy included in such a great condition. Thanks my friend, I love this. Last but not least, we have the pre-pack checklist that every Gibson should have. In here we have the date, which is October 26th, one day after the serial number 2012. Remember I showed you the serial number 299, the 299th day of the year. This is October the 25th. So the checklist was issued a day later. In here you also find the tool for adjusting the truss rod and a Phillips screwdriver. Oh man, I can't believe this still has the new guitar smell, the vanilla Gibson smell that, for example, the Buckethead signature had. And to finish it up, here's what the backside of the case looks like. Now let's hear it. Before I move on to the conclusion of this video and tell you my final thoughts about the Gibson, I must say this: if you ask me to choose between the Epiphone and the Gibson version, and I'm gonna discuss this in greater detail in my Epiphone video, but for now just know this: I will absolutely go with the Gibson every time. Not only because it's a Gibson, obviously the Epiphone is more affordable version, but this in my opinion has more character. Together with all the case candy, the case, and especially the PVC conduit. It is missing in the Epiphone version for a good reason that I'm gonna explain in that video, but for me, out of the two, I will always choose the Gibson. It's a no-brainer. Here's the thing: I'm sort of a collector and I'm at a point that I want interesting guitars, and it's definitely interesting. There's actually something missing that could have made it more appealing to me, and it's this.
This particular guitar has something interesting. I cut a hole in the guitar. Let's see, I kind of jimmy rigged it back here, but I cut a chunk out of the guitar the exact same size as this old Boss pedal, and I mounted the Boss pedal to a back plate, an aluminum back plate, and then I wired the jack goes through the pedal and back out to the the pickups go through the pedal to the output jack. So it's permanently in line with the electronics of the guitar. And this particular pedal is a pitch shifter, and it allows me to bend my notes almost as if I had a tremolo bar, which on Explorers we don't, obviously. So for example, I can or I can go down. Kind of neat, kind of like a whammy bar effect, like a dive bomb type thing. I can control the speed of the descent or ascent, so it can go slow or fast. I kind of leave it somewhere at about 9 o'clock maybe, kind of like that. I can go 2 octaves up maybe. I like that one. That's the one, like during a concert I'll just grab that note and the whole band kind of looks over at me with anger. Anyway, it's a great, I think it's a great discovery. It allows me to, you know, kind of have that wild whammy bar sound without actually having to have a whammy bar. So that was what I came up with, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yep, it's pretty cool, but I can totally understand why Gibson didn't do it. I imagine that it could have been hard to get 400 Boss pedals, especially if Gibson is not working directly with Boss, and it would have made the whole guitar even more niche to 5-finger dead punch and Jason Hook fans. They couldn't have made a custom shop version with that because it would have flopped. It is pretty tricky with such guitars. You can never predict how fans would react to them. Fortunately, the reaction to this guitar was good and they sold out almost immediately back then. 10 years have passed since then and you can still find some of these in good condition. Unfortunately for the fans of 5-finger dead punch, Jason Hook parted ways with the band somewhere in 2020. He started a new project called Hook, so you can look forward to that. He stated a reason for leaving the band, and here it is. As for the reason I'm leaving, well, there really isn't just one. I've been in bands my entire life and I feel like I've done all the good that I can do here. It's time to pass the baton and move to new challenges. Apparently the next challenge for him is his new project called Hook, and I wish him all the best with it. He's a pretty cool guy. He has a pretty cool YouTube channel with guitar lessons, updates on his upcoming projects, so be sure to check it out. Oh man, I still can't believe it. The Jason Hook Epiphone and the Gibson both here at the same time for me to review. It was a massive pleasure for me. I absolutely loved the Gibson M4. In my opinion, this is one of the best signature guitars that I have ever tried, and I think that this is how signature guitars should be, with all the case handy, with all the character. People either love it or hate it, but no one is indifferent.